Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of Lawyers on the Rocks. The Lawyers on the Rocks are Jeremy Eldridge, me, Kurt Nachman, and Adam Crandall. We are produced by Gideon at Up Next Creative. Jeremy Eldridge practices criminal defense. I'm Kurt Nachman. I handle civil litigation and personal injury matters, and Adam Crandall does whatever it is that immigration professors do. We are Maryland-based lawyers, and this is our show. On this week's episode, we are sampling the Bitter Shmidt, specialized cocktail concocted by Shmidt Spirits. We're also joined by founder and CEO Arthur Shmidt, and we have a number of great topics. Oh, by the way, this is episode number 100. You can find us online at lawyersontheRocks.com, Facebook, Instagram, email us, lawyersontheRocks@gmail.com. Please be sure to give us a click, a like, a share on iTunes, positive review, Stitcher, on Facebook, anywhere you get your podcasts. In the meantime, sit back, relax, pour yourself a drink, and enjoy this episode of Lawyers on the Rocks.
You know, Kurt, now that we do that intro, have we talked about how redundant it is for me to then ask you, like, what are we drinking today?
Yes.
Am I being redundant right now?
Yes, you are being redundant. I'm ready to just dive right into drinking.
I can't believe we got to episode 100. That was the first thing I wanted to acknowledge. I'm pretty impressed that we got to episode 100, number one. And what does that say about how much we're drinking at the office? Because that is 100 weeks of Lawyers on the Rocks. So I think it says something about the legal profession that we've created a podcast to excuse ourselves out of Friday stress drinking, which I'm really enjoying.
Arthur, thanks for joining us.
Good to be here.
So, yeah, you want me to take the lead on this one, Kurt? Do I get to be the lead investigative reporter for today's show?
I think you were running point on this.
Great. So, Arthur, yeah, thank you for joining us. I do want to give a shout out. I saw him this morning and I said, hey man, Arthur's coming on the show. You should watch. So Ryan, if you're out there, if you're watching today, thank you for setting us up and making this happen. It's a true Smaltimore moment that we're here today. So Arthur, as Kurt mentioned, you are the president, CEO, and as I have dubbed you today, overlord of Shmidt Spirits. So tell us a little bit about, before we get into the bottles and what we're drinking today, just tell us a little bit about yourself. What's your background? Where are you from? How did we get here?
So as you mentioned, Ryan, you know Ryan well at the Mercy Medical Center. I still work at Mercy Medical Center in construction engineering, but my background is mechanical engineering. And then from there, I came around here for high school and college, but prior to that, I was in Chicago, California, and even before that, Mexico. My grandmother raised me down in Mexico for some time. And we'll probably talk about that a little bit later, but that's the future of Shmidt Spirits. We want to kind of combine those two worlds at some point in the future. So yeah, that's the basic background. I'm not sure if you want a little more information, but that's kind of it.
Well, I mean, the mechanical engineer, construction engineer to whiskey distiller is a very natural progression we're used to seeing on the show. So I'm sure that's nothing interesting there at all to talk about. Actually there is. So talk about that. The distillery started or opened up about a year ago, right?
In the basement of Mercy Medical Center, right? Because that's what Ryan told Adam, so I just want to make sure that was correct.
Yeah, he said he gave you a good price on the space down there.
That the nuns were actually the ones running the hooch.
But you'd be surprised, they drink a lot. Yeah, so the genesis story of Shmidt Spirits is, I grew up as a child in Mexico. And I've always wanted to do something, to kind of honor my grandmother. And, as time progressed, we still have land out there. We still have family out there. And I try to visit there at least 2 times a year if I can. But what to do with the land, right? I mean, it's doing nothing out there. It's just sitting there. Now, the first thing, of course, Mexico, we're right in the state of Jalisco. So why not make tequila, right? But, the reality hit us. We can't just pick up, we can't live, go move down there and start living. I gotta, still pay the rent and, support a family. So why not start something locally? And I love whiskey. So here we are, a friend of mine, Brian, who's our master distiller, you know, I had a property here in the College Park area because I went to University of Maryland, and he helped me manage that property, and you know, we became really good friends from that. And you know, he knew about my crazy story and decided to jump on board. And then, you know, I would say about 3 years ago, we actually got serious about it and started raising the money for opening the doors. And then approximately let's say November, December timeframe, I made a first batch at the distillery. Passed it around to family, you know, it was a hit. And from there, we were like, okay, well, let's do kind of a soft opening. And that occurred around February. And of course, you all know what happened around February 2020 and March 2020. So it was a long time coming, a lot of money spent. And then, of course, you know, COVID hits us in the middle of all of that. And then we're here today. So.
Yeah, and I did kind of want to talk about that because we've spent a lot of time here. I mean, we run a small business, obviously our firm, and we've spent a lot of time on some prior episodes talking about how difficult this is this time economically for a lot of small businesses. We're talking about surviving. You're talking about getting started. So what does that look like for you on the ground? I mean, you open your doors in February and then a month later, oh fuck.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we opened our doors in February, and you know, even with our limited marketing, people were still coming to the door. You know, volume started increasing. And I would say around the April timeframe, you can look at our sales and it fell off a cliff. I mean, it literally fell off the cliff to zero. You know, the governor put out his order, you know, people can't leave their houses, and so on and so forth. So it really made it difficult to sell. And our original plan was to market and drive people to distillery, you know, make it more of a social event, throw events, you know, tastings, cocktail hours kind of thing. All that went out the window, right? So our model had to shift to, okay, well, let's start focusing on driving to liquor stores and distributors. And that has a host of challenges, you know, in and of itself, because we're brand new. Nobody knows we exist. We have an unproven product, right? And at the same time, we're knocking on people's doors saying, hey, buy our stuff in the middle of a pandemic. So as you can imagine, it's been kind of difficult. The interest, you know, it's been the answers you get. Most people just slam the door, say we're not, you know, entertaining new products at this moment, but you just got to keep hammering away and trying to get in there.
You didn't know that you were signing up for an outside sales job when you opened the doors.
Yeah, you know, I got into it for the love of making a beautiful and tasty drink. And 99% of my job is trying to, you know, cold call people to, you know, get in the door and try to get some spirits.
Hold on, you're telling me there's a job opening for door-to-door whiskey sales?
Absolutely.
Because if you're hiring,
absolutely,
you know, COVID is not as much.
I can only pay you on commission, though. I can only pay on commission.
Look, vacuums, Bibles, whiskey, those are all windows. These are all very normal door-to-door products. It's good for walk-by tastings.
Right.
Well, let me ask you to follow up on that, because in a second we're sampling the Cobalt right now, and I want to get into that and talk about what we're tasting here and the process. But on the topic of distribution and marketing and selling, if one of our listeners is at home right now and likes what we're about to say about the whiskey, how do they get a bottle short of driving down to Beltsville? How can they get a bottle? How can they get a case? How can they get this into their homes right now?
Flash the 1-800 number, Gideon.
So there are a number of ways. We do shipping. So now we're allowed to ship. So I can ship you a bottle.
Okay.
There's also, you know, curbside pickup if you don't want to come in. We are in Montgomery County liquor stores. We are in some liquor stores around our distillery. Not very many though. So I know this is more of a Baltimore audience, right? So if somebody's in Baltimore, wants a drink, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'll call the liquor store. I'll drive up there and, you know, drop them a bottle. If I know I have a customer of one, it's worth the effort, right? Because then, you know, that could lead to more. So don't be shy. Reach out. Say hi.
Free Schmidt shipping. I can't say that. Free Schmidt shipping.
Have you trademarked that?
We've thought about doing kind of witty, marketing and advertising around my last name Schmidt, right? I got Schmidt face. This Schmidt is awesome.
These are like dad jokes. We're gonna get along.
That's great. I love it.
No, I definitely. You got to go with that.
Ooh, this is the Schmidt. I can do this all day. I really can do this all day.
All right, let's talk about this Cobalt. Everybody, Gideon, you've got it, right? Kurt, everybody's got the Cobalt. Arthur, we're drinking, and I want to say, and I did want to tell you, of all of the guests that we've had, you're the only guest who has supplied the alcohol.
Oh, really?
And
Wow.
I cannot.
I could have charged you.
No, that's not. I think Ed brought a bottle of booze.
Ed brought E.H. Taylor.
All right,
Yeah.
so
Well,
Arthur, you're on a short list with you and Ed Norris.
That's not a bad list.
No, Gideon brought the booze. Sorry.
Dang,
Never mind.
Yeah.
It's a list of one.
Good
So
job. Fuck it, guys.
I did want to say thank you. And as I mentioned before we went on air, you dropped the bottles off, I think 2 weeks ago. And Jeremy and I don't know if you can see this, Jeremy and I got into the silver a little bit the night after you were here.
We didn't realize until Kurt made fun of us the next morning. It's like that your parents get mad for leaving that one sip of orange juice. And Kurt's like, you guys drank like half the bottle. And we're like, no, shit, we did. Or shit, we did.
We drank half the bottle.
God, this is great.
All right, so can you walk us through the process here as we're sipping the Cobalt? Tell us about the process, but then also I love it when people tell me what I'm supposed to be tasting. So if you can give me that rundown too.
And how old is it?
So it's a younger whiskey. We've only been open, our doors for almost a year at this point. So you're not going to get anything older than a year out of this. They're actually 6 months old. So the Cobalt is 6 months, and the silver is about 4 to 5 days old. And then we finish that in the Chardonnay for the silver with another 3 or 4 days in the Chardonnay barrel. And that's to add a little crispness to the end of it. You should get some of the aroma and some of the flavor of that Chardonnay on the finish. And that's kind of what we're aiming for, right? We wanted not to do just a traditional rye, bourbon, gin, but we want to add a little bit to the drink, a little more than your typical thing. So we're focusing on finishing. And that also ties back to the Mexico idea, right? So our next product, right? We want to produce a bourbon next. And that bourbon, we want to finish in tequila barrels and kind of bring those two worlds together and then slowly build on that and tie those two, and make something happen awesome. But along the same lines, the rye is finished in a rum barrel, Caribbean rum cask. And we made sure we specified sugarcane type rum instead of a molasses-based rum. So it has a little sweeter element to that finish, and you should get a little bit of aroma. You should get a little sweetness at the finish of it. And the young rye, I think, offers a little bit more of the grain character. So you should have a little more of the rye in there, the spiciness of that rye. And then also we have wheat. The wheat helps cut down that rye with a little sweetness. And you don't see too many, ryes out there with wheat. I think Brad on your last episode actually mentioned about wheated spirits, and we love wheat in ours, and there you go.
We're seeing a lot more wheated bourbons.
Yeah.
Can you tell us what is the percentage? I mean, as much as you want to reveal.
It's 2/3 rye, 1/3 wheat.
Okay.
And we actually use exogenous enzymes to help control the process a little bit more. So rather than your malted barley, we didn't want to over sweeten it too with some of the barley. It was easier for us to control, especially starting out. So yeah.
I want to go on record as saying that even before you said I should be getting that cane sugar on the nose, I'm getting it. Like it's there, and it's
like a caramely smell.
You
Very
can
pleasant.
really taste the exogenous enzymes. I don't want to put that out there, but that's the best taste.
Sounds dirty.
As far
yeah, they're
that's
better
the
than
most scientific we've ever gotten on this show.
exogenous enzymes beat out endogenous enzymes.
That's what my parents were going to name me, exogenous enzymes Eldridge, and it was a couple too many E's. I
I thought
gotta
you were
say,
named androgynous enzyme Eldridge.
I mean, I swallowed it. My favorite thing about you, I gotta say, is I know you said we're Baltimore based, but I'm a Prince George's County, gorgeous Prince George's boy. So
All right.
I went to Eleanor Roosevelt and PG, and you are right on the Route 1 corridor. And at first, when we saw your spirit come through and Adam talked to me about it, I wondered whether you took over for Showcase that used to be back there, which if anybody's from PG County is the defunct strip club. So I thought, but I want to come back there. I've seen a lot of revitalization on Route 1. And also, I'm hard pressed to think of another PG County distiller. I know there's some breweries in Upper Marlboro. There's some halfway decent beer coming out of PG County, but I couldn't even name another distillery in PG County that's doing what you're doing. And it's okay. You don't have to name one to prove me wrong. But it was really cool having grown up there to see you coming to Route 1. You got University Park right there, College Park right there. You got sort of a captive market that is definitely looking for something like this, as opposed to going, to Frederick County or Carroll County or anywhere else you could have gone. So I was happy about that. No one else is happy that I'm from PG County.
I'm happy about it.
Exogenous enzymes and keep it moving.
I think I already stroked your ego on that before we went on air when I referred to Prince George's County as God's country.
You have to. The first judge I ever worked for, he said to me, I said, "Oh, you're PG County," and he said, "It's pronounced Prince George's." And I said, "Judge, aren't you from North Carolina?" And he said, "I bet you like working here." And I said, "I work here for free." Needless to say, it was not the best relationship with your first intern. But hey, I'm not on the show for that.
So I'm going to ask maybe a dumb rookie question, although I've been on 100 of these episodes now. But can you talk to us a little bit about the difference between the Cobalt, which has got this, I don't know if it shows up in the camera, has got this nice caramel color, and the Silver, which is the younger of the two, but also aged in the Chardonnay barrels, has got this nice silver color. What are we seeing there that's making that happen?
It's really the barrel. I mean, the barrel imparts all the color into the spirit. All spirits come out of the still clear. And they typically come out of at 170 proof, 160 proof, depending on how you run your still, especially for a whiskey. And, the rye at 6 months is a light brown. If I gave it another 6 months, you see that tint a little bit darker. And if you look at the silver, there's going to be a slight tint to it, almost like a yellow, not necessarily yellow, but like a tiny brown look to that. And that's coming from the Chardonnay and from that barrel as well. And to be called a whiskey, you still have to put it into a Chardonnay oak barrel. So they've both been double barreled, actually, if you think about it, right? So the first barrel aged it and the second barrel finished it. And that's what's happening.
How many uses can you get out of a single barrel? Just out of curiosity. That's not something, frankly, I've ever thought of asking until you started discussing the double barrel.
Yeah, it depends, right? I mean, it's all about age and time, right? So let's say you're using a finishing barrel, right? How long has the previous spirit lasted in that barrel? That's going to impart some flavor into the barrel, right? So if I put my whiskey into a rum barrel, if it's only a rum barrel that's had, rum in it for a day or two, it's not going to really impart any level of rum into our flavor, right? But if it's, been sitting there for 5 years, now we're talking about some nice intense flavors of the rum, those caramels coming out. Same goes with, just a regular Chardonnay oak barrel, right? So if I sit it in there for, if I age one barrel for a year, and I use that to finish, let's say the gin that we slightly finish our barrels in, that also affects the flavor, right? It's really duration and time of both what the spirit was in before and what's after. Yeah.
Correct me if I'm wrong though, but most places, the aging barrel, you really only use it once, unless it's then used to finish something else. I think that's become kind of an in vogue thing in the last maybe decade or so of let's try all these different finishing barrels, sherry and Oloroso and like all this stuff that people are trying to throw whiskeys into to see what'll happen if we throw it in a second barrel. But in general, the old school method was you char the barrel, you use it once, boom, you get rid of it.
Yeah, and that's exactly right. I mean, so if I wanted to use my rum barrel to finish another drink, right, it's going to have to sit in there 2 to 3 times as long as the first batch just to get the same amount of flavor out of the barrel, simply because that first batch already extracted that flavor out. So, yeah.
Do you have any plans for mezcal by chance?
I do actually want to do something with mezcal. I'm thinking about doing some sort of finish work or some sort of liqueur, a sugary type drink. With mezcal, because that smokiness that comes from mezcal, I think would be really nice to impart into a drink.
If you need a liaison to go to Jalisco contigo, estoy bien. If you need a little legal help, we're here to go. And they said it's a paid vacation for me, so don't worry.
Well, really quick, Arthur, too, and we're gonna break here in a second, and then we're gonna finish out the episode with the gin. Can you hand me that bottle?
I can.
Not only did you provide us with the alcohol, you provided us with 3 bottles. So we have the Viridian gin here. If you want to talk a little bit about that, what the process is there, and what we're going to be tasting with that.
Yeah, so when we were starting up, the gin process was actually a lot of fun because I feel like you can do more rapid testing with the gin, right? And you basically create a bathtub gin. You get all your botanicals, you throw them into a, not bathtub, but like a ball jar with their base spirit, and then you can try all these different flavor combinations. We had like jalapeno, which almost made me throw up, and I'm half Mexican, which is just crazy. But the flavors that just came out of it was.
You now have to give your card back, dude. I don't think you're allowed to say shit like that. You're like, health department, it wasn't in a bathtub. Like, you don't make me come collect your card there, buddy.
So we ended up actually pulling back. Instead of doing all these crazy botanicals, we actually pulled back because we noticed that a lot of the best tasting ones were simpler, to be honest. So we ended up going with lavender, orange peel, junipers, and we even pushed down the juniper a little bit because if you think of like Tanquerays of the world or the some of the other ones, right? They're really piney. It feels like you're getting a pine cone shoved up your nose sometimes, at least to me. And I prefer whiskey, so why not make a gin? It's a whiskey gin. And we did that. So we produced a very subtle, mellowed out gin, and then we finished that slightly for about 3-4 days in the actual rye barrel that the rye you're tasting was in. To kind of mellowed out that flavor a little bit as well.
Is this somewhat under proof too?
No, it should be the same proof. Yeah.
Okay. The only reason I'm curious is listeners who've been on for a while and have followed us will know that when we tried the aviation gin, I was like immediately converted. I was like, I really like this gin, and I really like this gin. And I might just try to buy this instead now, particularly because it's local. And I got that citrus sweetness on the back end immediately. I was like, oh, there's got to be orange in here, and it isn't as piney as a lot of those like really pine bomb gins that I think are not maybe as good, but it's really, really smooth, and that's why I had to ask, is it maybe underproof? Because a lot of gins will come down really harsh, but it's really drinkable. It's very nice.
I'm always pushing Ransom on the show. Like, they know I like Ransom gin, and so I like Gideon in the same way, where I don't need the juniper berry shoved up my nose. And I'm glad we're just going right to juniper berry drug problems. But it's the same sort of thing where I find when people will make drinks, like I love a gin old fashioned, you'll go to a Beefeater or a Hendrix, which doesn't even have much taste to it, almost like a more expensive vodka. It's like, I just want something that doesn't have any taste to it and is clean. So I'm tasting everything else you're mixing it with. This has a nice mellow flavor to it. And I would like to make, and I was thinking about it when we first tasted it, making a gin old fashioned with it, because I think it would be a nicely complement. Everyone that knows it's the Jimmy, which is named after me. So
the Jimmy Eldridge. So Arthur, we're going to be drinking here for the rest of the episode one of your cocktails. It's called the Bitter Shmidt, and the website suggests there was a little bit of an accidental genesis there. You want to tell us a story about that?
Yeah, we put out a weekly newsletter, and as part of that newsletter, we provide a cocktail, kind of a new cocktail for the week, and it doesn't have to be our spirits, right? But most of the time it's our spirits. And we wanted to do a Pimm's cup. And I thought I had Pimm's on the shelf, but in fact, I had Campari. So I went through the process of looking at all the ingredients and doing that. And right when I went to go make it, I realized, oh, crap, I'm using Campari. And Campari is a little more bitter than the Pimm's. And so, we tasted it and we're like, wow, actually, this isn't that bad. It actually turned out pretty good. And rather than sweetening it up to kind of balance out the bitter a little bit more, we decided, why don't we just keep it a little more bitter and call it a Bitter Shmidt?
You're not a Bitter Shmidt.
So I have to tell you, I gave my wife a sip of this before I started the podcast, and so I have to give her a shout out. She came up with an slightly alternate recipe that as I'm drinking it, I'm like, yeah, she might be onto something there, which is to use, instead of lemon juice, grapefruit juice. And that would it would definitely be a little bit different, but might blend some of the flavors. But this is pretty good.
Just don't serve it at Mercy, because if anyone has statin issues, we could run into problems. God,
Well-
this is such a dad joke show.
I love it. So before we let you go, Arthur, thank you again for joining us. Do you want to plug? You've got, I'm sure you're on the Facebooks, the Instagrams,
The Twitters,
the Twitters.
the LinkedIns.
Where can we find now? And make sure, and I want you to make sure to know, because I made this mistake when I emailed you the first time. I wasn't paying attention to the link that Ryan had provided, and I included the C in Schmidt. There is no C in Schmidt. I don't know if that's just me. I don't know if I'm just stupid that way, but Schmidt Spirits, no C. Where can we find you on the social medias?
On the
You
Snapchat.
can find, yeah, you can find us on all the social medias, at Schmidt Spirits across the board. I encourage, your users to check out our website, sign up to the newsletter, and they'll get news of events. Easily request, if you want it locally, just drop us an email and I'll make it happen.
And we can come
Guys,
down and see you now, right?
Yeah, are you open again? That was my question. And what are your
Sure.
hours and where are you located?
Yeah, we're in Beltsville. If you think of the DC Metro corridor, right, you have 495 and 95 intersection. We're basically right around that intersection. Our address is 10360 Southard Drive on
Baltimore,
Baltimore,
Maryland, 20705, baby.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And when are you guys open? When is the tasting room open now?
It is, yeah. It's open. We follow all procedures. We clean after everybody else. 6 feet apart. Wear your masks. But yeah, come on in. Free tours and tastings. We hope you buy something, of course. But yeah,
Hours?
9 to 5.
7 days a week?
I'm sorry, 10 to 5 on Saturday and Sunday. I
And
apologize.
they offer free Wi-Fi in case you want to telecommute.
I mean,
If you want to telework from Schmidt, you're good to go.
Yeah.
might. Arthur, thank you so much for joining us. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you for the fine spirits. We are really enjoying them. I was going to say the spoiler alert was that Jeremy and we didn't drink half a bottle of the silver before the episode because we didn't like it. We really liked it. So
Fuck.
it's good stuff.
Or
So
shit.
Good Schmidt. All right.
all right. Thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate it. Cheers, Arthur.
Cheers.
All right.
What's
So,
next, Kurt?
guys, did you know that COVID is over?
Wait, hold up. We are celebrating today.
Okay.
We could have gone down to Schmidt and to Schmidt Showcase today.
We are celebrating our 100th episode.
We are. By ending COVID. We ended COVID. You didn't know that.
The podcast ended COVID.
COVID.
I'm very proud of us, guys.
COVID's over.
Kurt, did we end COVID when you killed the mutilated leopard that it made the shirt that you're wearing?
Look, okay, this is my party shirt. All right.
I bought that for him.
I know you're all jealous. Jeremy bought this for me in New Orleans. It's very spiffy. I plan on wearing it to court at least 3 times when COVID reopens, and I'm gonna wear it to all special occasions and events in the future.
When he walks in the door, the Seal Kiss of the Rose song comes on, which is really quite beautiful. It's like automatic.
You
My
know what?
hair, my hair starts popping out of my
Oh,
chest.
great. Hamburger meat, baby.
It
So-
blows open.
I'm going to try to coin a phrase here. Like the short sleeve version of a shirt like that is already well known as the Fat Guy Party shirt. The long sleeve version, I would like to coin officially today as the jury duty shirt. So if listeners, you are summoned as juries, COVID's over, juries are coming back. If you were summoned for jury duty, I recommend you wear a shirt very much in the style that Kurt is wearing today. You will certainly not be picked.
I want to make fun of you and say you haven't picked a jury, but in all honesty, that was so fucking on point. Like, if you don't want to become a United States citizen, wear that shirt. And we all, for a little bit of background, when we went to New Orleans, we all bought ridiculous. We bought hats, we bought shirts, and this is remnants from that vacation. And while we walked around, because we're a trio of men with beards wearing bad shirts, everyone assumed that we were a band. And
I don't know why they didn't assume we were a podcast, but whatever.
Yeah, well, there's still time. And so Kurt asked me, can you wear your New Orleans shirt? And Kurt bravely wore his. And sheepishly, I said, I can't fit in mine because of COVID. So now that COVID is over, I know it's time to get back on the Bougie Peloton and time to fit in my New Orleans apparel.
Get on your Peloton, get riding with Biden, and so we can get you back in that shirt.
It's time to make a route.
All right. So in all seriousness, though, COVID is wrapping up. We expect by May or June that like most people are going to be able to get vaccinated. Things are going to start getting back to normal. The Maryland judiciary is scheduled to start resuming jury trials April 25th, 26th. But just recently, everything has converted to virtual, or at least almost all courts for all court appearances have converted to virtual. Here's my question for you guys. Why the fuck did it take the Maryland judiciary so long to get their heads out of their asses and really start pushing virtual pretrial conferences, virtual scheduling conferences? Like, why did it take almost a year?
Well, I don't know the answer to that, Kurt, but do you know, and I think you do know, so I'm asking you this question, is Maryland the only state that's been lagging behind in this regard?
Not at all.
I mean, I can't speak to states. I do have personal firsthand knowledge of states that never missed a beat and weren't taking evidentiary hearings without it being in person, but were scheduling settlement conferences and trying to move cases forward as much as humanly possible. Texas probably is an outlier, but I know Michigan, which is a Democratic leaning state, fairly liberal, had very, very, very tough COVID restrictions, really didn't miss, other than not having juries, was still kind of pushing full steam ahead most of their dockets, most of their non-jury dockets. So, Maryland is a little bit to that extent an exception. And like one of the things you and I talked about in prepping for the show was that like the state every county was using different platforms. Some were using WebEx, some were using Zoom, some were using Microsoft Teams. There was a Hartford County, which I give them props. They were, kind of on the front edge of this stuff, pushing people, but they were using Skype for Business, which isn't even supported anymore by Microsoft. It got rolled into Teams. So, why the judiciary didn't leverage its muscle and weight into getting one platform across the state, I don't. And there may be, candidly, there might be like a rule as to why each of the counties is able to operate as its own fiefdom. I don't know.
Well, and I'll say this too, and then this is the last thing I'll say about this, because this is obviously, more you guys' area of expertise, and with all apologies to our judge listeners out there, but we've talked about this before. The judiciary tends towards more of an older set, right?
Anachronistic.
I mean, and so, and by nature, I mean, you don't want young judges. I mean, I'm sorry, with all, you don't. You want some judges with experience. And so to the extent that the Maryland judiciary is governed by, led by, populated by an older set, that transition to technology. I mean, I had to have my staff come in today and start a conference call on my telephone, and I'm not even that fucking old. So in that regard, I can sort of understand it, but maybe there are other reasons.
So when you have this conversation, at least on the state level, you have to recognize that the District Court of Maryland is a statewide body. And the one weird part about that is that there was little to no uniformity, although it was a statewide body. And that was a really wonderful opportunity. And we wrote an op-ed, the three of us, very early in COVID to that effect, saying, well, if I'm going to go to virtual happy hours on Zoom, why can't I go to court on Zoom? Or why am I showing up for a bail review in Baltimore City or Baltimore County in person if my client is already on video? And I think we moved a little bit past that, but I was a little surprised that we didn't see that uniformity. The second thing I have to say, and this happened more recently in Baltimore City, was we couldn't sort of get past ourselves in getting rid of even the COVID processes that didn't make sense. So for instance, in Baltimore City, we had a process where you had to call in at 9:30 when we all knew the cases would be postponed for felonies. And then you would call in at 11 to actually have the case postponed. And then eventually, after about a year, we decided maybe we should just call in at 11. Whereas in Baltimore County, if you knew you weren't going to resolve the case, you would send an email. The case would be automatically postponed and pulled off the docket, and you had to submit one form. So the lack of uniformity, I think as we went through the year, the biggest surprise to me was that we didn't look at some of the processes that weren't working, that weren't even virtual, or look at counties that maybe operated a little bit more efficiently and just make some of those more simple changes, because frankly, they would have benefited the bench, especially in larger jurisdictions. So, the one good thing that came out of it is that MVA hearing. So if you get a DUI or a license suspension hearing, those are going to be permanently virtual. It looks like the only organization to come out so far, and Kurt, please correct me if I'm wrong, is the Office of Administrative Hearings for the state of Maryland that said, these, at least the MVA hearings, are going to be permanently virtual, which I can't tell you, that what a big impact that has. I mean, when you do DUIs and you tell I'm sorry.
I really liked going to Hunt Valley because if you went at the right time of the day, you would always get that cinnamon spice.
Oh, guess your spice.
From the McCormick Spice Factory.
No, but if you're doing a DUI, you'd have to say to your client, when you go there, you have to turn in your temporary license, and you're not allowed to drive after you leave there. So you have to have a third party available to drive you to a full service MVA. Or if you're going to get interlock, you have to have somebody there to drive you home and have it installed there, because you can't have it pre-installed. Yes. So
I never thought about that. Like a virtual MVA hearing for someone where the punishment, the penalty could be losing your license, having them appear virtually, that makes so much goddamn sense.
You were driving there with a license,
right?
Lawfully,
leaving there not allowed to drive.
Yeah. And so that was the dirty little secret of every defense attorney. Is like, I don't know what to tell you, but they don't have a cop in the parking lot, And so I do think we've learned our lesson in some ways. I'm seeing some counties do virtual parking tickets. That was the joke that we made in the op-ed about a year ago, last March. I'm really hoping, like Kurt says, that we've learned some of our lessons. I know that the feds are continuing to do some virtual hearings. And the other little thing that you didn't even mention, Kurt, the fact that as attorneys, I've only been on the side for 11 years, but for attorneys before me, their dirty little secret of how much time it takes to do a jail visit, to go to a jail and to see somebody in a PCDC that's closed, the hour-long wait, the broken stool, nowhere to prep, or taking you up to a pod in central booking when the elevators are broken, and you're sitting in 6 South on a tiny little chair that only fits Eldridge, is the size of a kindergarten. But now we can do a video legal visit at some of these places. And they're an hour and a half at CDF, which is the federal facility in the city, where you can get people on the phone at MTC. So with a little more teamwork, I do think we can make everybody's life a lot more easier. People just have to be open to accepting the technology, because in the end, for a lawyer to be able to sit down with you and not transport people to different parts of the facility, and to be able to have that screen sharing software.
That's a huge advantage for the facility.
It's life altering and professionally altering for the lawyer and for the client. Mm-hmm. And Clarissa, we were on a video legal visit for an hour and a half this week with the client, and it was so much more effective because I wasn't wasting all of that time of going to the detention center and sitting and not having to get pre-approved for technology to be able to show a client discovery. So that it's not just the judiciary that I think has to learn. I think it's the Department of Public Safety. We all have to come together and embrace that.
Well, and I think too, I mean, let me just jump in here. I'm hoping that the takeaways from this are that there are spaces within the criminal justice system, and I'll include what I do within that as well, at least as far as the litigation side is concerned in the immigration court. There are important spaces within this where the technology that has come out of COVID and the just sort of comfort level that everyone has now with, jumping on a video call or the way this all works now, I think there are some important spaces where that can take over and be the new norm.
You don't have to pay for parking to come talk to us.
But I do want to say this, and again, at the risk of sounding old, but I was down at the immigration office in Virginia last week, and I ran into another attorney there who I haven't seen in over a year. And it's not someone, his office is down in DC, but it's someone who I would see regularly at the courts, and we kind of had a moment of like, holy shit, like I used to enjoy standing around waiting for my case to get called, talking to you.
Well, that's the bullshit, right?
That's the people side of this that I have missed during this past year, and we are almost a year to the day. We're about a week away from a year of this COVID reality. And to the extent that technology can improve some of the efficiencies, I don't want to see technology impinge too far on those opportunities for personal interaction.
I think we're
And
gonna get back
I
to
include in
that.
that meeting with clients and talking to clients and consulting with clients, but also seeing other attorneys. There's an important information sort of exchange that takes place when you have a personal experience with someone. And I'm looking forward to getting back to that sooner rather than later.
There's definitely a happy medium, and we'll find out what it is. And the only thing I'd like to add is Clarissa Lindsay, our wonderful, fearless associate behind us, she can't take a fucking compliment. It's really weird for her to practice law, to start practicing law during COVID, because a lot of what we're talking with you about on a daily basis is unnatural to us or unfamiliar to us. And every day, a lot of what we're doing is sort of unfucking some of the unfamiliarity or the inconsistency between various jurisdictions, the exogenous enzymes, so to speak.
What do we think? What do we think of strip clubs being reopened in Baltimore City? By the way,
Don't snub the club.
Open a club, shouty.
Yeah, the best thing about it, which I know I'm repeating, is that the fact that they did the protest for Don't Snub the Club the same day as a couple lawyers went out to say that Marilyn Mosby had been vindicated by the city solicitor, who can't even vindicate her for federal tax fraud issues, and that her couple friend lawyers got drowned out by the strippers, is one of my favorite COVID moments of 2021 by far. Because if Marilyn Mosby can get beat by a bunch of strippers, clearly we've been attacking this situation.
well, and can we give a shout out to Josh Inslee, our former office mate, Soller, Inslee, Lord, and Ernstberger law firm? Kind of took the forefront, represented a couple of the different strip clubs in getting a preliminary injunction, and then ultimately getting the city to rescind the arbitrary and capricious
And
order.
Look, Josh also was one of the big lawyers on the gun trace task force litigation.
Yeah.
Former public defender. He used to share space with us. That dude is fucking fearless, man.
Dude,
that guy loves a fight, and I love him.
Yeah, and just an all-around good fucking human, Josh Inslee. And also his new firm, or not so new anymore, we could have a consonant battle with them. And Eldridge, Nachman, and Crandall versus Soller, Inslee, the rest
I'm
of them.
Jewish, so I can say this. It's like the antithesis of the Greenberg-Steinberg. Like,
Yeah.
we've gone the opposite direction. Like,
How many Gentiles can you line up in a law firm name over there, Inslee?
I don't think you're allowed to say like something like that on a Bitter Shmidt episode.
All right. So
Next
we are on episode 100, dealing with all the Schmidt. The question is,
There's a whole lot of Schmidt going on today, Kurt.
what's your favorite episode, Adam?
You had to ask me first.
Jeremy, what's your favorite episode?
That is so easy. Easily the Ed Norris episode, for a couple of different reasons. Number one, we drank Colonel E.H. Taylor, which is great. It's the only time on a podcast that we finished the entire bottle, which says a lot about the end of the podcast. Number two, HBO was filming. So the fact that they were there made it a little more exciting. Number three, Ed Norris is a ridiculous radio personality. And I said something that shut him up, which made me feel like I won the Super Bowl. And last but not least, number four, he tried to kill Gideon. And Gideon made the mistake of arguing with somebody that was 4 times his size within arm's reach. And in being partners with Kurt, you learn you don't argue with somebody that can smash you when you're sitting next to them. So he almost killed Gideon during the episode. That's easily my favorite. And I'd love to have Ed on again.
My recollection of that episode too is that we got pretty drunk on that one.
I just said we finished an entire bottle. Can you name an episode where we finished an entire bottle of whiskey between fucking 4 people?
Wait, I think I have the answer to that, and it was the Pappy episode when I can't remember the name of the guy who
Brandon
Mead.
Yeah, who thankfully supplied it to us, poured himself like $600 of whiskey in the glass.
Hey, he was going to the Ravens game. In fairness, that season, he probably needed.
I would agree with Jeremy when Kurt said, "What are your favorite episodes?" The two that came to mind, both are the ones where people maybe threatened to destroy me. The first being Ed Norris, and the second being Eurypsy Morgan. Is that right? Was she the one?
Eurypsy Morgan, yeah.
I tried to go toe to toe with her, and she just shot it right back.
All right, I'm ready now, Kurt.
So what do you got, Adam?
I mean, so we've had a lot of episodes. The episodes that stand out, obviously, are the ones where we had guests. And I don't want to. I already know what your answer is, so I'm not going to jump in there. But that was certainly a great one. I think we've had a lot of really, for me personally.
Did you? You said you were ready to answer the question.
I'm answering it.
You're not answering. You sound like a lawyer.
I am answering it.
I'm getting. I feel like a judge. Answer the question.
This is an opening. For me personally, we started this as a hobby. We started this not as a anything related to our business or a way to make money. We did this as something to have fun. And there are a number of episodes that I cannot recall because I probably had too many drinks and we didn't have a guest on or a photo to jog my memory of. I know that there were a lot of those where we had a really just fucking good time.
There was about a year where you wore an infinity scarf. There were a lot of scarf episodes.
With that all said,
have a favorite?
With that all said, I do have a favorite, and it's actually an episode that I went back and listened to several times after, and it's when we had Dr. Fred Barrett on. Okay. And the reason why is because, no offense to any of our guests, but we've had excellent conversations. But I think all four of us were just dumbfounded by what we were hearing and the way that he was able to talk about what he did, which is on some crazy fucking next level scientific shit, but explain it to us fucking lizard brains in a way that was just like, that's fucking cool.
We were all competing in that episode to see who could impress Fred more, hoping that Fred would give us mushrooms and go through a session.
That is not true.
And it was so painfully obvious when Adam started rubbing his knee during the episode, as though we couldn't see him because there was no table for him to stop rubbing on.
Kurt, what about you?
So I actually pulled up the list of episodes and I actually started running through them. And Fred's obviously stands out, and the one with Ed stands out. I kind of tend, and I'm looking off to the screenshot of them all. I like, so first of all, Bruce White is like my favorite episode because I just love Bruce and he's a great dude. His story is so fantastic. And like, as lawyers who do criminal defense and who do civil litigation and immigration law, like we all have this intersection with like second chances in life. And trying to sort of reform yourself and change yourself and grow as a human being. And so, that his story is very inspirational to me. So it's got that kind of special touch. That said, there are several episodes that are worthy of mention only because of the terribleness of their cocktails.
Hold on. Before you say that, my favorite thing about the Bruce White episode is Bruce delved in to this crazy story about, and please listen to it if you haven't, where Bruce is in jail and he watches these two guys murder someone. And we're sitting in the office, and that episode was another time actually, Cooper's Coffee had sent us coffee, and we brewed coffee, and we're sitting there and Bruce is telling the most intense story I've ever fucking heard in my life about these two guys murdering someone in jail. And then we realized that it didn't get recorded. And then we're like, you got to tell me.
So,
and telling somebody after they tell a story like that, like, hey, you need to tell the story. It was like, sorry, we missed that the first time.
That was the third time in 100 episodes that Gideon almost got murdered.
That wasn't Gideon's fault. That was Gideon.
Slivovitz plum brandy is one because I had a tremendous amount of fun recording that episode because we were clowning on Jeremy and his Jewish heritage.
That is a Jewish funeral beverage. Sitting Shiva with Slivovitz.
Wyoming whiskey and evidence spoliation. I don't know if you guys remember that one, but it was hilarious.
I must have had too much Wyoming whiskey. It's not.
It's been spoliated.
Gideon.
Oh, that was so good. Come on. That was like low hanging.
Yeah, there were lots of. It was very punny, and of course, the punniest episode that we had is number
Texas
9.
Brandy.
Hot
Hot
Sex and Brandy.
So
Why is that always our go-to? It's so good.
It's our shortest episode too, I think, right?
I think it's our shortest episode. That's when we
Finishing fast is a good one.
Kurt, what was the episode that we made a joke out of? We kept talking about the name of the liquor as like a tagline joke in several other episodes. It was something Jeremy brought in.
Shockmont.
Shockmont.
Shockmont was a good one too.
Serena
That
Williams
was a good
husband.
one.
Now, to put her completely on the spot, I got to ask you, Clarissa, since you're obviously an employee of EN Lawyers, the law offices of Eldridge, Nachman, Crandall, Steinberg, Biederman,
Inslee and Lord.
Science and Kirk, Inslee and Lord, and Chappelle, what is your favorite episode? And don't, we're not going to judge you or reduce your salary.
I don't have a per se favorite episode. I just remember it feels like years ago, my first time bartending episode when I was in law school. I have no idea what happened on it. But I was just so proud of you guys.
What did we? I forget.
We need a GoFundMe for her because that sounded very like Stockholm syndrome. Like I didn't like it at first, but then I started really liking it as I spent more time.
Yeah,
with
let's play this all the way out. You just sit back there and say nice shit about us, okay?
Yeah. I mean, Adam's already dressed like he's ready to catch a predator. So.
All right.
Gideon.
More
Gideon.
important question.
Wait, hold up. Gideon, favorite episode?
He literally answered it already.
Answered it.
He hasn't even drank that much.
The
You're-
one
You,
you're saying
The
it.
next day.
you literally already said that to Adam once before, and I have it queued up to play right now. Are you ready for it?
Yes.
Because sorry, I'm going out of order here because I was planning on playing this third and not first, but we have a theme of making fun of Adam's clothing.
So when the listeners check out our Instagram feed, they'll see a picture of you in your scarf.
That's
looking
fine.
Very professorial.
I mean, this is like To Catch a Predator mixed with Dead Poet Society.
Waste these.
It's a good thing we're recording. It's fine. I like recording and not telling anyone that we're recording, just to catch Eldridge in his
Seriously, like
most
if God could
inappropriate
create a
phase.
human haiku, he'd look like Adam.
Scarf.
No, seriously, like
Windy Day Tuesday.
Oh yeah,
Scarf.
not so windy city, Adam. Next on stage,
I don't remember how many
gonna-
syllables is a haiku. It's like 12,
5,
3, and
7,
12.
5. 5, 7, 5.
There we go.
Wouldn't it be like windy day Tuesday, scarf around my frigid neck, makes me look like douche.
welcome to Gideon's Corner.
My friends laugh at me.
You can post it on your MySpace page.
Wow, that was right on time.
That was a well-timed blooper. All right.
The follow-up, the really quick follow-up, which I'd like to announce today, since you called me professorial.
There's follow-up. Okay.
Since you referred to me as professorial, I just want a little tease to a future episode that may actually be an appropriate title for me.
I picture this like, if this ever happens where he's teaching, it's gonna be like Indiana Jones where the girl blinks and it's like, I love you. And he gets super fucking awkward and doesn't want office hours.
I'm gonna put elbow patches on all my sport coats. You guys will know what's going on.
You already have them on your knees. Next topic.
All right. 100 episodes. Favorite drink. I'll go first.
No, okay. I just wanted to make sure. No, go first because I didn't want to let Adam. I want to let him sit for 45 minutes since he's unprepared.
Cocktail or like bottle?
Either one.
I picked a Saint Saffron cocktail because I just loved it. It was delightful. It was different.
Which one was that? Can you remind me?
That was the saffron gin that I brought back from Rehoboth Beach. That was
Saffron gin, elderflower, liqueur, lemon slice seltzer combined over ice with a little bit of Saint Germain. So really, 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 really tasty cocktail.
Gideon, let me guess your answer. The QG drink.
By far, that's been my favorite cocktail for sure. Yeah, absolutely. The Lion's Tail from the QG. I was trying to think, in addition to that, which just straight spirit has been my favorite. And I didn't just want to say Pappy's, because I also feel like when we drank that, we were like, oh, we're drinking Pappy's, and maybe that just sort of influenced how much we liked it. And so I was trying to think, like, which ones have I bought bottles of? And the only one that I could think of, other than having bought a bunch of Aviation Gin, is the Koval Oat Whiskey, which I enjoyed so much that I went out and bought another bottle of it.
I was going to say Lion's Tail, and because Gideon said it, that was also our 50th episode that we filmed live at QG. I will instead, like Gideon mentioned, since he stole my answer, I will go with the spirits that I bought. Bardstown that we did. Bardstown was a $100 bottle that was smooth as fuck. I mean, that was some of the best whiskey I've had. Uncle Nearest I'd had before, but was really good. But that wasn't surprising because I had already had it. I think the drink that surprised me was really the Lion's Tail, only because I'd never had one before. And it was so obvious that everyone in the crowd enjoyed it. I mean, they must have made 150 of them that night. So, I mean, that one kind of stuck with me because, you know, whenever we have these drinks or spirits, there's always a little bit of a differing opinion. That was one cocktail that everyone just seemed to enjoy.
I'm gonna go, and I don't remember the name of it. Kurt, help me out here. The one with the rye and the Aperol that we had not that long ago, is the cocktail that I most enjoyed. It was almost like a Negroni, which I'm a huge fan of, with bourbon or rye whiskey.
The Tasted Treason cocktail.
Thank you. The Taste.
That's episode number 94. Yeah, no, that was delightful. That was
Someone would stick with you. I made a Sky Sail the other day. I mean, it's kind of funny how once you make them, and listener Peter bought me a spirits book, which is where we found the Taste of Treason, if I remember correctly. But, you know, some of them stick with you, and they're easy ingredients to have at your home. You know, it's a little bit of citrus. It's whether you have a Campari or an Aperol or vermouth, you know, some sort of mixer, and then a primary liqueur. But I just got fancy.
Yeah, well, and then I said I compared the Sky Sail to the Lion's Tail, so like that to me is almost number 2 because they were really similar in the flavor profile.
The difference was the high quality maple syrup.
One that I want to buy is Blackwater Distilling. It's local-ish. It's Eastern Shore Distillery. I'm gonna reach out to them. Hopefully, we can get them on in a future episode. Because we did them for number 44 with Euripsy, and that was good. Also, Widow Jane micro distillery out of Brooklyn. I have actually bought some of that, 2 different bottles of that, you know, post episode because I enjoyed.
What was the worst? Hold on, you know what we didn't do? What was the worst?
The one we had with the computer dude on.
Yep. Episode was horrible. We should trash it.
Really? Dad's hat.
The black hat.
Dad's hat.
Black hat.
Saying it smelled like, so all of them were bad. Black hat, Dad's hat.
Anything with a hat. Don't name your drink after a hat.
Don't name your drink after a hat. I agree.
Tastes like man's.
The black hat cocktail had egg in it.
Ooh, I like that.
No, it was terrible. It was atrocious. It literally exploded all over my
Our guest also took his shoes off and sat Indian style in my chair. And normally I don't approve barefoot walking around in my office. So that sort of added to it. So there might have been a slight foot smell during that episode. You can't smell it, obviously, if you're watching or listening, but much like Spaceballs, it jammed.
What else you got?
I got 2 more bloopers.
Let's do it.
So one of the things that we, well, other than making fun of Adam a whole lot and what he wears, that we do is also that you don't generally hear in the final recordings, although maybe you've heard them some more since we've been doing live on Facebook, is when we start talking about the episode somewhere in the middle of the episode.
To go backwards, can we please talk? I mean, this
like
Chimurri
worse.
thing is
Actually, we can always punt.
That's more of a punishment.
We can talk about it with Rich.
Just putting
Dude,
You
what
have
did
to
we talk
swim
about?
across the heart.
No, we didn't.
Yeah, and you end up
we
with
didn't have enough
bacterial
subjects.
infection. You end up
Do
with
we have
staph.
subjects? Do we have enough subjects this episode? I feel like we don't
This
have any.
has been like 20
what
minutes.
content do we have? Do we have content this episode?
Didn't we talk about the Preakness for a while?
Do we have enough content?
Can you
Are you saying is there enough to create an episode? Please don't do that.
can you
have headphones on.
include in this episode us talking about whether we talked about things in this
No.
episode? That would be really entertaining. What did we talk about?
The only real question is which Ian Lawyer's
Sorry.
partner is taking me to dinner tonight since Kurt's leaving.
Can we have outtakes? Can we have outtakes from this episode? There should be some good outtakes.
Oh,
Okay,
there's,
all right.
yes.
All right,
This
hold on.
episode is full of
You know
outtakes.
what's phenomenal
The real
here?
question though is when are we going to do the outtakes episode? Is that going
I
to
think
be
we
like
just
a,
did.
Wow, that was proof for a DUI right there.
Yeah, so like we used to do 2 episodes a week, which we have not done recently, and the second episode then making fun of Adam to go off the rails pretty hard.
Yeah.
That was horrible.
There was a period of time there where like the odd numbered episodes were like, yeah, just skip that.
Yeah, that's because by the end of it, you 2 drinks for the first episode, 2 drinks for the second episode, and then we go to dinner afterwards because you can't drive after that. So that's why we had that bad second episode. I knew people that literally only listened to the second episode. Like, look, I think you guys are great. I'd use you as a lawyer. The first episode is boring. I just want to listen to you guys drunk, which really says something about me. Yeah.
That said, my favorite blooper is probably the blooper that's so bad I had to actually edit the blooper for the blooper reel.
man?
Oh, and by the way, before a little context here, we were drinking a beer from Howard County that I still can't remember the name of. Manor Hill. That's it. I got it. That at the beginning of this, you hear me make a gaffe because I totally forgot the name of it.
Hold up.
Jesus.
Edit that. That's gonna be edited.
You want to try that again? You want to try that again,
time.
GB?
Shrink that time.
Try that again, GB.
I'm proud of Manor Hill.
I don't know who it was.
Come on, buddy. Try that again. Can you not? By the way, Rich and I do live and are elected in Howard County, so let's not be horribly harsh. To
I'm not
Manor
even.
Hill.
No, it's not the bad.
Because-
I'm proud.
Please edit that out
Edit
too.
this shit.
First of all, the luxury of having a podcast is that we.
No, never mind. All right.
And take 2.
Yeah, the blooper's so bad, it had to be edited.
The only thing I'm learning here is Gideon showing us that he earns his money for being a producer.
And Gideon showing us that we could never, ever, ever cross him.
Yeah,
The amount of shit that he has on us.
I can't wait to run for office again and just have my podcast blooper reel played against me at a debate. I really think that's what I run. I want to run only so my podcast can be used against me.
Dude, Gideon's untimely death and the trashing of his hard drive coincidentally coincides with your announcement of running for political office.
Thanks for putting that out there.
Young local podcast producer found floating in harbor.
Yeah, now Clarissa has to move to Howard County and run for me so I can have.
All right, quick hitter because we're running up on an hour. So, worst drink from the podcast.
We already did that.
Whoa.
Next
Is this
topic.
the dementia episode? Next on Parkinson's with 3 dads and a baby.
I
Can't
mean,
believe it's not Baltimore.
if I ask you, like, what are we drinking today, Kurt, right after you've just said what we're drinking, is that redundant?
Kurt's actually broadcasting live from an Oakcrest facility.
You guys are watching the genesis of a running joke right now. It's gonna be great.
What's great about what just happened is that should go in a blooper reel, but we're recording live.
Kurt.
This is like that time you froze on CNN and we were worried you had a seizure,
Is your
which
shirt
actually happened.
What's happening?
I'm not quite sure how to segue, guys.
I can do it because I love the next article.
Yeah, just like Clarissa.
Wow, whoa! The associate says she likes cockfighting.
Out time.
Wait, is my mother listening? That's what I need to know.
You can't ask that. She's not on live.
No, but I mean, like, is she like watching us live? She usually does.
She's in the audience. Just assume.
There are 6 people.
I'm going to tell you what I tell you. Just
Right now,
assume
there
your parents are watching and disappointed.
People watching.
Okay, that's fine.
Katie, by the way, 2 things. Listener Katie says, I miss Jeff Sessions, but not Jeff Sessions. And
Fair.
episode 100 is a banger. I think those are 2 excellent points. All right, so
That's the description of a good podcast show ever.
I mean,
So-
definitely to go back, my favorite episode was definitely Matter of Castro Tune.
That's the only good accent you have, though.
I know.
But it's great. It's fucking great.
Gus Boudreaux's pretty good too.
Yeah, it is. It's got that big dick energy.
Speaking of Gus Boudreaux, how about cockfights? How's that for a segue?
It's a great segue.
That I
Big
I
dick
have
cock energy.
ammunition against you. The one blooper that I have not been able to air and that no one has heard and only I have is Adam doing a Gus Boudreaux impression. And that's all I'm going to say.
That one,
Yeah, that one should remain closeted.
that one killed my run for Baltimore City Council.
All right. So we're going to do back-to-back. I can't believe it's not Baltimore. And I need to know whether or not these two things happened in Baltimore. Very important. One non-legal and one legal.
Serious face.
Indian man killed by his own cock while cockfighting.
Unserious
cockerel-
face.
A cockerel has been fitted with a knife for an illegal cockfight has killed its owner in southern India. The bird owner was impaled in the groin by the knife as the animal tried to escape. The man
Oh, thank God it was a bird.
The man died on the way to the hospital from the loss of blood. Police are now searching for 15 more people involved in the event, which took place in a village of Luthnor in the Telangana state earlier this week. The animal was held at the police station for questioning before being transferred to a farm.
It doesn't say that.
It doesn't say that. It says the animal was held at a police station before being transferred to a farm. The police said the animal was being readied to take part in a fight when it tried to escape. The owner tried to catch it, but it was struck by a 3-inch long knife on the bird's leg during the struggle. Those involved in the event face charges of manslaughter, illegal betting, and hosting a cockfight. Local police officer B. Jivan said the animal would be taken to court as evidence at a later date, according to the New Indian Express. Cockfighting was made illegal in India in 1960, but fights are still relatively common in rural areas, many following around the Hindu festival of Sankriti. It's not the first time an owner has been killed by their own cock. Last year, Andhra Pradesh died after he was hit in the neck by a blade attached to his bird. According to CNN, the owner was taking his animal to a cockfight when the incident occurred.
Let me just get the easy joke out of the way first. Kurt, I could just listen to an entire episode of you pronouncing Indian names.
Kurt would be the worst immigration lawyer ever. So Pradesh,
What?
and you're facing deportation for having a cockfighting ring, a cock ring or a cockfighting ring. My paralegal didn't do great intake notes. So are you wearing the cock ring or was there a cockfighting ring? Does it vibrate?
Wow.
Oh, I can't breathe.
Speaking of
The big question here, to get serious, okay, to not be cocksure, is can you be deported for this country for cockfighting? That's what I wanted to know. I want to know that
Is it a crime of moral turpitude?
You mean deported from India or deported from the United States?
The United States would take you. Like Texas would literally go, you want a cockfight? You got chicken and a blade and the 11 original herb spices. Ted Cruz is going to meet you next week.
I mean, the real, if you really want me to answer.
Oh, the rub. Do you have the rub? The rub.
I mean, the rub here, as far as analyzing, I would need to see the Indian cockfighting statute and analyze the cockfighting statute very closely to determine whether it's what we would refer to as a crime involving moral turpitude.
How do you eulogize a dude that died cockfighting without laughing and shit? You know, like Gupta, he was a good guy, man. I like chickens. You know, I'm not doing any racist accents, okay? But like, I don't know why I go Southern because that's like the easiest one to do. You know, but how do you do that? It's just such like a fucked up funeral.
What's the other one, Kurt?
The other what?
Oh, we get it. By the way, rest assured that shit happened in Southeast Boston.
Cockfighting?
Oh,
The man was killed by his own blade. See, I didn't realize that they were attaching knives to rooster feet.
dude, that's how you cockfight. The only difference is in America, you have like an MS-13 involvement. There would be witness intimidation. No one would show up to court, and then 4 other bodies would get buried. This one motherfucking chicken couldn't control his knife. You know what I'm saying? Came too fast.
What do we think of the drinks, fellas?
I gotta. I'm not a huge Campari fan, but I like this. Maybe I'm just growing to be a bigger Campari fan. I already said I really like this gin. I'm actually going to seek it out and buy a bottle for myself. As far as the whiskey goes, I think it has a really great base. I would love to see where they're going to go with this stuff as they start aging it and do some more distilling. So I think we have a lot of good things in store to see from Schmidt Spirits. And
I was gonna. Sorry, go ahead, Gideon.
I said I'm very excited about this tequila barreling.
Yeah, I mean, I was going to say, obviously, I mentioned earlier, Jeremy and I got pretty far into the bottle of silver a week ago, and we enjoyed that. The Cobalt, I thought, sort of along the same lines, had some nice taste, the sweet on it, the cane sugar on it, I really enjoyed. But I'm with you, Gideon, on this with the gin. One of the bottles that we talked about earlier, one of the bottles I actually bought for home was the Aviation. I'm also a huge fan of Campari, and this cocktail with that gin is it's the Schmidt.
Campari and vermouth are 2 spirits that we've added to gin that the first couple sips I'll have sort of a sour or because of the bitterness I don't love. But then what'll happen is about a quarter way through the drink, it'll water down a little bit, which evens it out for me. And then I start really enjoying the bitterness of the drink as it blends. And it's one of those things that needs to sit a little bit for me. And I just think tastes better sort of as you go through the drink.
Mm-hmm. No, for sure. I think that one of the things I want to give them tremendous props for is it's very, very, very difficult for young whiskeys to be, palatable. And they've done a really, really, really good job of that. I think through creative finishing in those different bottles. The gin is delightful. I think I sort of echo Gideon's sentiment. I tried it without anything else in it, and it was not like having juniper shoved up my nose, which, I like juniper. I like that pine flavor. But it's nice to have something a little bit different. And so along the Aviation lines, I'm glad you pointed that out because I thought, hey, this is like spot on.
With all the young whiskeys that we did a lot of killing of young whiskey, which is frankly why we didn't have some of the guests on, because we wanted to buy the spirit, give an honest opinion. Even though Gideon, I applaud you. Whenever we have a guest on, that's what I fucking love you. You're going to be honest, and that's what we do here. But I will tell you, Lost Ark with the 4-year, Schmidt with the 4-year, it's really cool that, and it has nothing to do with it being local, but it's fucking awesome, is that the best young whiskeys we tasted have been Maryland local whiskeys in Howard and PG County.
Mm-hmm. So a couple.
And normally, and it has nothing to do, we really killed a lot of stuff. So I don't know if we just have better people getting into whiskey locally and taking a little bit more time, or as our guest said today, taking more time with the finishes. That there's a huge change in what we're drinking now during COVID. That's the newer stuff versus some of those younger, like the Topo that we have from North Carolina, or some of the
Virginia
kettle, copper pot, Chester copper pot. But some of those younger whiskeys that just really didn't have any depth of flavor, and these are much different, and it's kind of changing the younger genre for me.
So, to give a shout out to what we have going on next week. This is obviously episode 100. We're going to do 101 next week, next Friday. We are having Checker Spot Brewing on. Super excited about that. Fed Hill, local Baltimore brewing company. Some good guys that do lots of different creative stuff. They don't know precisely what's going to be released in cans next week, but they're going to drop us some of their new release for next weekend. So we're literally going to be the first guys to be able to taste it, which is awesome. Also coming up, I've got confirmed Old Line is going to come on in one of the upcoming episodes. Really excited. That's a local Baltimore company. And then Nepenthe Brewing and Home Brewing, which is in Hamden, is also going to come on, hoping in the next couple of weeks. So we got a lot of
Johns Hopkins mushrooms in June.
Perhaps.
The vegan episode.
Right. So yeah, really excited. Got a number of good episodes coming up. Really looking forward to it. So I guess I have to do the outro now.
Thank you for joining us, Lawyers on the Rocks. If you need immigration lawyer or fake law teacher, please call Adam Crandall. He wears more sweaters than polar bear. If you get in car accident, call creepy non-Russian German man wearing a rose shirt and tiger print, which conveniently matches my underwear and tuxedo set. And if you are looking for someone to creatively produce your either church or home pornography, call Gideon at Creative Solutions. If you are looking for someone to be here during the day when Eldridge is napping in fine silk PJs, please call Clarissa Lindsay. She does the longest stat advisement on the East Coast. And lastly, if you need small honey bear that can go to immigration court and create stat, or criminal court and ask for a jury trial during COVID with no jury, but bring jury to find you not guilty, even though you're guilty, and then you plead halfway through, you call me. Next week, 101, Lawyers on the Rocks, we're going to do 3 sham marriages and turn Kurt's shirt into firm underwear. Thank you.
And on that note, sit back, relax, pour yourself a drink until the next episode of Lawyers on the Rocks.
After I get deployed.